Guys, welcome back to End Times Enlightenment. Today we have a very fascinating subject to discuss. It's a subject I've been interested in for about the last 10 years, and I've held many conversations over the years with people on this. But today I'm actually going to get to talk to somebody who's done some real field work and has some actual experience in this area. And so, coming all the way from an undisclosed location, somewhere deep in the heart of the Santa Monica Mountains, we have a very intrepid guest, and it's L.A. Marzulli. Welcome aboard, L.A. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for the kind introduction, Luke. Appreciate it.
So we're just going to dive right into it today. We're going to be talking about Three Eye Atlas. I'm sure you you guys are seeing that in the news. Talking about UFOs, of course, all from a biblical perspective. We're both born again Christians here. But starting off, I want to talk about the Sethite theory, which is a theory that in Genesis chapter 6, the sons of God were actually the godly line of Seth, and that the daughters of men were the ungodly line of Cain. And then somehow through this union, you got giants. But I want to talk a little bit about how this is factually incorrect. And LA, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I've been talking about this a lot. When Jesus tells us, you got to go back 2,000 years. So when Jesus is saying to the people, it'll be like the days of Noah when I return. So that's a really charged question because number one, where are you going? What do you mean when you return? So I mean that in itself is very, very mysterious. His apostles don't get it. Really, nobody does. But when he says it'll be like the days of Noah, everybody in earshot knows exactly what Jesus is talking about. Why? Because according to Josephus, the first century historian, the bones of the Nephilim are openly on display in Jerusalem when Jesus is there. Why are they openly on display? To show the inhabitants of Jerusalem and all the Israelites what their forefathers conquered centuries earlier. And they're there. They're not on the temple because that would defile the temple, but they're near the temple, in my opinion. That's conjecture. We don't know the precise location of where the bones were displayed, but they were displayed. And in my opinion, they weren't hid someplace, down some back alleyway. They were in a major street where pilgrims coming into the city would see them and they would go to their sons, hey, Luke, look at this. This is what your great, 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 great grandfather conquered in the land. And that's what they'll say. So that's what it'll be like the days of Noah. So everybody knows what Jesus is talking about. That's the first century. In the fourth century, this knucklehead, and I tell I introduce him. This knucklehead by the name of Julius Africanus comes up with the Sethite theory, which says, well, the sons of God were the godly lines of Seth, and the women of earth, the human women, were the hoochie mamas of Cain. And this is what is now taught. And Augustine, Julius Africanus, Augustine, they're all connected, and they begin to spiritualize everything. It's not literal. Angels can't do this. And we go into the dark ages where you can't read the Bible basically for 1,000 years. So the Sethite theory, unfortunately, is still taught in seminaries today for the most part. I rail against that, push back against it all day long. It makes absolutely no sense because Genesis 3:15 tells us that the seed of a dragon, the offspring of the dragon, that means the dragon, Satan, can reproduce. The offspring of a dragon will be at war with the offspring of the woman. The offspring of the woman, that's literal, excuse me, becomes the Messiah. It's the first prophecy of the Messiah. It's the first prophecy in our Bible that someone is coming who will crush the dragon's head. That sets up the rest of the biblical prophetic narrative. If we understand that, the rest of the Bible opens up. If we don't understand that, the Bible remains closed. It is, in fact, a seed war, culminating in the seed of the woman, the Messiah, who then crushes the head of the dragon, fulfilling prophecy on Calvary 2,000 years ago.
Yes, I mean if we take the seed of the woman to be literal and physical, then why would the seed of the serpent or the dragon not be the same? I think one of the greatest argument, so to speak, for the Sethite theory is they'll go back to Matthew, where Jesus is talking to the scribes and Pharisees, and they're asking him that stupid question about, well, if this man has a wife and he dies, and then the next husband dies, blah blah blah, so on. There were seven of them, and at the end, in the resurrection, whose wife is she really? Because all seven of the brothers had her to wife. And then Jesus says, "Ye err, not knowing the scriptures nor the power of God." In heaven, the angels are not given in marriage, is what he says. And so they'll use that verse and they'll try to say, well, see, the angels, they can't reproduce. But that's not what it says. It says, first of all, in heaven, they don't. And it says they're not married or given in marriage, which, I mean, just looking around us, we can look at all kinds of examples of people who are not married who are reproducing. So that argument doesn't fly. Another thing I like to bring up to people is, if you take the Bible literally, and I believe that you should, if you go back to Job chapter 1, the sons of God show up with Satan, right?
Right.
Together. If you go over to Job chapter 38, they're showing up with Satan again, or not, sorry, not with Satan, they're showing up with God. And the context of Job 38 is creation. Where were you, Job, when I created the world, the foundations of the earth, when all the morning stars sang together and the sons of God shouted for joy? Well, if we're talking about creation, well, then this is way back before even the first man. This is before even Adam. So there is no godly line of Seth. It cannot exist. And I mean, you just reference after reference all the way through. It is a unscriptural position.
No, I completely concur. And the problem is it's taught as truth in the seminaries today. That is, I mean, most pastors are taught that. And so when someone like me comes along, they immediately go, whoa, wait a minute, because it goes against their training. And
Yeah,
yet, when you present it in a very, line by line, precept by precept, when you present it that way, it makes them stop and think, well, wait a minute, something's going on here. And the church, for the most, I did a show today with a pastor in New Mexico, and it was really good. But I could tell he was a little taken aback by some of what I was saying, because it's we're going to get into the deep end of the pool here. There's no doubt about it, and it's not for the faint of heart, and it's not the salvation message. It's not. Salvation is here. That's the beginning. When we ask, when we believe on Him who was sent, Jesus, right? We believe that He is Lord and confess with our mouth, that He is Lord and that God raised Him from the dead. Well, then we're saved. If a person out there is watching this show and you confess that with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe that God raised Him from the dead, well, then you're saved. That's it. I mean,
exactly. Not by works.
no. And if it was any more complicated than that, human beings couldn't do it. So that's it. But most people won't even go there. Well, I'm not sure that he's a good man, blah, blah, blah. Well, we don't know whether he really rose from the dead. Those are the only two criteria. That's it. And when a person does that, I did that 45 years ago, they become born again and spirit filled, which is unbelievable. And it's been quite the ride for the last 45 years. But, circling back to the whole Sethite theory, if you were going to screw up a whole system of theology, if you were going to make it so pastors would never know what's going on, that's what you teach. And then you never teach the Genesis 3:15 narrative, where the pre-incarnate Christ in the Garden of Eden looks at the dragon, Satan, and says, your seed will be at war with the seed of the woman. The proto-evangelium, the seed of the woman coming from the woman, that man coming from the woman will crush the dragon's head. That happened on Calvary 2,000 years ago, and nobody saw it coming. Nobody got it. The two Marys, Mary Magdalene, Mary, his mother, John, no one saw it coming. How do you kill God? How do you kill? The dragon didn't see it coming. Everybody's going, come down, save yourself. You've saved others. They all figure, well, he's going to come down and then heal himself miraculously. He dies.
Yeah.
And then 3 days later, we have a film on this, The Shroud of Turin. 3 days later, he's resurrected from the dead. Pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. And there's also future context to that too, when Jesus Christ comes back at the second advent and literally stomps on the Antichrist, who is the devil inhabited on his head. And you've got again the bruising of the serpents. You've got a dual application there. Back to what you were saying though, on all your seminaries, all your pastors being taught this Sethite theory. I remember as a kid when I first started getting into this, I was about 13, 14. I started reading some books. I got a hold of a lot of Chuck Missler's material. And his and Peter Ruckman's material on UFOs were the two big things that kind of got me into this. And I was asking some pastors, I was saying, what do you think about this? What about this verse? What about this? And they wouldn't want to talk about it. And they didn't know how to refute it either. But you could tell right away they got very uncomfortable with it, and it's something they didn't want to discuss. I mean, I get that, it's not, it would be it's a secondary Bible issue to, salvation through Jesus Christ, grace through faith. I mean, it's not what the whole Bible's about, but in, it explains a lot of passages in the Bible that they don't know how to reckon without that understanding of what really happened in Genesis chapter 6. And like you said, with Genesis 3, that narrative of the seed of the serpent, the seed of the woman, that being physical, a lot of the Bible, you can't explain it.
I concur completely. I mean, the key to the biblical narrative, in my opinion, is the Genesis 3:15 statement. That sets up the rest of the Bible. It is, in fact, a seed war. I mean, you can take, Chronicles and Kings, and you can just take everything, and they're part of Israel, and everything's marching towards the advent of Messiah, and it's also there to show just how depraved man really is, especially in the book of Kings. Oh my gosh, it's just like, someone rescue me, please. You know,
Yeah.
or, or Chronicles. I mean, it's just one bloodbath after another. It's disgusting. I hate it. I don't hate the Bible, but I hate the fact that it shows just how depraved human beings are. I mean, the intrigue is worse than Game of Thrones, and it's in the Bible. And people go, well, I don't understand this. Why would God allow this? To show the depravity of man, to show exactly why we need a savior, someone to rescue us, because this is not the way it's supposed to be. That's why one of my favorite scriptures, they will beat their weapons into plowshares, and there'll be war no more. They will learn more no more. That is incredible. I can't wait. I can't wait for that. I mean, right now, just look at the wars going on, declared, undeclared, the soft wars like in Nigeria, where just this morning, 52 Catholic girls were kidnapped. That's the end of their life. That's it. So, it's like war is raging, earthquakes, famines. I mean, when you look at Jesus's punch list, wars and rumors of war, earthquakes, famines, pestilence, it's all everything, men think from fear from what's coming upon the earth. It's all happening in real time right now. And then when you throw in the AI, when you throw in
Oh yeah.
artificial intelligence, it's like you don't know what is real anymore. You just don't. So how can you be accountable? How can I be accountable for anything that we see? Because we don't know what's real. We don't. I was just given. Someone said, "Hey, LA, look at this," and it's a typical. Someone's taken a shot of some place in Greece. It's this mountain. It's got a crevice, and then someone inserted a large skull in there. It's totally AI, you know. And this kind of nonsense is just everywhere now, and you can't tell. Well, most of the time you can't tell.
It's very hard to tell what's real and what's not real anymore for sure. Um, are you familiar with the Wanacue, New Jersey sighting?
Refresh
Where,
my memory. It rings a bell, but
yeah, I think it's about 1966. Large UFO was spotted over the reservoir in Wanacue, New Jersey. I think in the Ramapo Mountains. And my grandpa, some of his friends actually saw it, and they went up over the mountain the next day because it was headed toward the water reservoir over that mountain range. And they actually got to see the exact shape of the craft that went down into the ice there because it's frozen. This was in the wintertime, I think January. And you could see the exact shape of the craft there in the ice. And I grew up hearing about that story, and I always thought that was really cool. And that's one of the things that got me into it. But just real quickly, there's not you're 100% right. There's not enough Christians that are talking about this. They're uncomfortable with it, and especially in light of the end times, I feel this is a very important subject that's been neglected because there is a coming deception, and according to prophecy, there's going to be 10 kings that show up with the Antichrist, Daniel chapter 2. They're part iron, part clay. You reference that to the 10 horns on the beast in Daniel 7 that Daniel sees in that vision by night. And you're going to have something showing up that's not human that will claim to probably be your creator or your savior. And if you don't have the knowledge on how to combat that, a lot of people they're going to be deceived.
and I agree with you. This is why Jesus says three times in Matthew 24, "Do not be deceived. Do not be deceived. Do not be deceived." So why is he warning us of that? Why in that same chapter does he say, men and women will faint for fear for coming upon the earth? He's not saying coming from the earth. He's saying upon the earth. Something is coming upon the earth. Question is, what is that? Is it an asteroid? Is it a fleet of UFOs? I would challenge your audience to go to YouTube, which is where you're watching now, but in the search engine, type in Super Bowl halftime show 2024, Hello Down There. That's the name of the commercial. Hello Down There. You watch that and you tell me if that's not predictive programming, because it is. And I'll just run it through quickly. A woman is walking on the streets of what look like Manhattan, New York City. So she's on her cell phone, and the headline is, Congress discussing UFOs. It shows a picture of the gimbal UFO, but she doesn't really like that, proof of extraterrestrials. Doesn't really. So she scrolls, and then there's a cat clawing the toilet paper. Now she's laughing and she's happy. Meanwhile, over her head, you see a giant UFO go like this. And of course, she's looking down at her cell phone, so she doesn't see it, nor does anyone else around her see it. Then it cuts to Paris, France. All of these kids your age, young adults your age, but they're all on laptops, computers, tablets, cell phones. Meanwhile, over the Eiffel Tower is a very large UFO. They're oblivious to it because they're all looking at their tablets. Then it cuts over to a diner like in West Texas or New Mexico, and these people are just eating at a diner, and the woman is looking at celebrity bacon diet on her cell phone. The man is looking at his cell phone. The dog is barking in the back of their pickup truck and looking up because there's a UFO reflecting. Then it cuts over to Paris, to Japan, same thing. All these people are like on the 8th or the 10th floor of a skyscraper in a board meeting, long table. Everybody's got laptops. They're all completely absorbed in their laptops and cell phones. Meanwhile, the windows, because it's a corner office, there's UFOs going outside. They don't see anything. Finally, it cuts to the ship, where there's an alien with an elongated skull, similar to that behind me, and he smacks his head because he's frustrated, and he presses a button. He presses a button in the ship. Immediately, everyone's cell phone, tablet, and iPhone, cell phone goes to a picture of all the aliens waving with hello down there. And then it cuts to New York City. The woman is looking at her cell phone and she looks up like this and she sees overhead mile wide UFOs. And her face does this in awe, in wonder. Then it cuts into France. All the kids are up, standing on their feet, looking at the UFOs. Then it cuts to Texas. The man and the woman are looking out the window at the UFO right over their truck. Then it cuts to Japan, same thing. Everybody in the boardroom is pressed up against the glass, watching these craft go back and forth. Then it cuts to Martin Scorsese, who directed this thing. It's a minute and a half long. And Scorsese goes, little, tongue in cheek, I told you not to take Broadway, but this always happens. So what they're signaling is predictive programming. You don't even know what the ad's for until the last 5 seconds. Yeah, they show a little clip in the very, very beginning. They font Squarespace, but you're not looking at that. You're looking at the UFO and the woman on her cell phone. So at the last 5 seconds, Squarespace, a website makes it real. That's it. I mean, that's it. What are we looking at here? So we're going to get some technical difficulties here. But if that's not predictive programming, Luke, I don't know what is. And then you get Three Eye Atlas, and then you get the Vatican talking about baptizing aliens. I mean, it's like, where are we? What's going on here?
I'm going to jump on that predictive programming train here for a second. Are you familiar with a movie called Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull?
Oh, sure. I saw that when it first came out.
Yeah.
Decade.
Um, Yeah, you got the whole concept of that movie. I would argue the entire thing is predictive programming. It starts out with Indiana Jones and one of his partners inside this warehouse, and the Soviets are looking for a body from Roswell, New Mexico, that's being stored in an underground facility, probably not unlike the Vatican archives or the Smithsonian archives. And basically, I mean, it's just the body that they find there. And Indiana Jones has this miraculous escape. He gets away from the Soviets, but later on, he's in Peru, and he finds in some sort of Native American graveyard, he finds a elongated skull, which is being clutched by, from what I remember, a Spanish conquistador. And then that he embarks on this grand adventure, and by the end of the movie, he's trying to return this skull to an underground temple in Peru. And underneath that or inside of it or whatever, there's this UFO. Then it flies up out of the ground at the end and zooms off into outer space or into
Right.
another dimension or whatever. And it reminded me a lot of the your work on the bracket skulls. Um, I think it's Alberino that is doing work on the what are they called? The Nazca tridactyls that were found in Peru about I think 2017. I just think that's really interesting. Where I mean, that movie came out in 2008, yeah, about a decade ago, a little over, and yet you're finding things very, very similar now that it's almost like it's right out of that movie. There's a show called Doctor Who, which is an old British show, and during one of their Christmas
Mhm.
specials way back in the day, I remember they had an episode where there's this big asteroid and it just looks like a big rock, but inside is like a spaceship, and you've got all these aliens in it, and it's being flown towards Earth, and it arrives around Christmas time. And
There you
people are
go.
wondering, they're wondering, is this thing, what is it? Is it a comet? Is it an actual, spaceship? But I think it's interesting that Three Eye Atlas almost fits that exact description.
I
And
agree.
it'll be here on what, the 19th?
Yeah.
I think is the date we're looking at now.
Yeah.
So predictive programming, I mean, it has to be a thing.
Yeah. Something's going on. We're being set up for something. Avi Loeb is on all media all day long, talking about Three Eye Atlas. And we've covered it on my YouTube show. I do a daily show on YouTube. And I've been covering this and watching, and he goes back and forth. And on one hand, it's like it's sort of fear mongering. This is going to be a black swan event, could be like a Trojan horse. So, I mean, it could be. I get that, but we don't know what it is. So, the fact that he's throwing it out there does two things. It gets people talking. It gives them a lot of clickbait. But on the other hand, he's right. There's no there's nothing there's no contingency for dealing with this type of a thing that we're aware of. Now, I'm sure the United States has something in case of a so-called invasion from outer space. They have some kind of protocol that's there. But the American people don't know. There was a show very recently. I would challenge your viewers to watch it. It's called give me a second. House of Dynamite. House of Dynamite. It's on Netflix. You need to watch that show because there's a thermonuclear bomb, a supersonic missile. You can't shoot it down, coming from somewhere in the Pacific, and it's headed towards Chicago. That's it. It's over. And it shows, with a little bit of a spoiler alert, but it shows the same scene from three different POVs, three different perspectives. It's a fascinating show, fascinating film. Why now? And I have it on good authority that they recreated those underground bunkers exactly the way they are, like Setcom, where situation rooms exactly like they are. They're sets; they're not the real deal, but they look exactly like the real deal. So they had access, and the question is, why now? Because a thermonuclear device going off anywhere on this planet changes everything. And that's when I think, they show up. That's when these guys show up. There'll be a nuclear event someplace. And that's, when, and I got to do a plug here. We have, Luke, we have 10 films on the whole UFO phenomena. Close Encounters of the First, Second, Third, and Fourth Kind, the abduction phenomena, Cali mutilations, crop circles, 2 films on Roswell, and then the book, Rungs of Disclosure. There are 17 rungs on the ladder of disclosure. Well, guess what? We're up to rung number 24.
Mhm.
We're up to rung number 24. And rung number 23 was when the UFO was flying in the air. And this was shown in Congress. Okay. And a Hellfire missile comes in like this and hits it. And the Hellfire missile just disintegrates. The UFO just keeps going. And it
Yeah, I
looks like,
saw that one.
yeah, it looks like an orb because when UFOs turn on their, when they start moving with the gravity wave, they light up. That's conjecture, but that's what I think happens. So they light up. but underneath that light is a craft, is a disc-shaped craft, just like this. So the thing is moving, and the Hellfire missile comes in. It glances off, the thing wobbles a little bit, and then just keeps on going. And the powers that be in Congress, ask the witnesses who were there, "Have you ever seen anything like it? Do we have anything like it?" And they all go, "Not to my knowledge, not to my knowledge." So it's Anna Paulina Luna was on recently, I think, with might have been Joe Rogan, doesn't matter, but she stated that this whole phenomenon is interdimensional, not extraterrestrial, which is my wheelhouse. I've been banging that drum for decades. This is interdimensional. It is. These are not, you know, extraterrestrials from some faraway galaxy. These are interdimensional entities with a very nefarious agenda. And this leads into the abduction phenomena, cattle mutilations, the crop circles, the flybys. Being abducted is no fun. Katy Perry had a song a while back, probably 10 years ago, um, about being abducted, you know. And at the very end of that, I mean, it's very, very disturbing. I used to show that film, that clip at conferences because it was very relevant. I remember sitting in a conference. I was not sitting. I was presenting at this conference, and I'm prepping the audience. What I'm going to show you is a song by Katy Perry, if you want to call it that, and your kids and your grandkids already know the lyrics, and they're humming right along. Well, the assistant pastor's in the front row, so I'm rolling the clip, and he looks behind me because his kids are sitting in the next row behind them. They're lip syncing to the song. They know it by heart. And that's when the light bulb went off. You see, Ancient Aliens on the History Channel is promulgating the ancient astronaut theory. They do it for the last, 15 years, something like that, whatever it is. And they do it every Friday night. And your generation has already, for the most part, been indoctrinated. You've been indoctrinated without even realizing it. So when they show up, oh yeah, we've known about this. These are our progenitors. These are the ancient astronauts. Welcome. Glad you're back. I say no, they're not our progenitors. They're not our forefathers. They are, in fact, the problem that started all this nonsense in the beginning. So I had a woman on my show a couple of days ago, a week or two ago, whatever, and her name is Dr. Heather Lynn. She's a renegade archaeologist. We had a lot in common, and she discussed the Anunnaki. She has a couple of books on the Anunnaki. So we discussed the Anunnaki, and she's a Christian. So it was very interesting. And we both believe that the Anunnaki is just another word for the Watchers that we hear about in the book of Enoch. And the Watchers are the fallen angels that came down and took the women, wives, plural, had sex with them. The rest is history. I wrote a whole book called Countermove, How the Nephilim Returned After the Flood. And it's called Countermove. And you can check that out. You see, we have an hour here. And this is what frustrates me. There are 33 films and 15 books. And unfortunately, most people today really don't want to do their homework. And
No,
you need to do your homework. So there you go.
exactly. We can't cover all of it. I mean,
No, it's
I'm
impossible.
trying. I'm trying. I've started a series, and actually, your book, your trilogy on Nephilim, and the last one, the Rungs of Disclosure, that's on that list. There's about 50 books I recommend people getting. Joseph Dolmage's work, Chuck Missler's work, David Flynn's work, just many different approaches, I guess, but basically all coming to the same conclusion. But yeah, there's no way we could cover it all. But you mentioned the Book of Enoch there, and I would challenge my audience. I'm a King James Bible believer, so I don't believe that as inspired scripture. But
But
is it not history? I mean, is it not?
exactly.
Is there something to it? So obviously scripture is going to be my final authority, but there's a lot of Enoch that paraphrases Genesis chapter 6, Jude,
Yep.
Second Peter.
Yep.
And there's definitely some similarities there. Same thing with the book of Maccabees. One of the guys that I do podcasts with, I mean, he said the same thing. I wouldn't look at Maccabees and say, well, that's part of the inspired Bible, but is it not history? Does it not cover the events between the Old Testament and the New Testament, that intertestamental period, and give you the story of Judas Maccabeus and the revolt against Antiochus Epiphanes, which is a very fascinating story and has a lot of parallels, I believe, to the second advent of Jesus Christ. But all these things are just amping up the evidence and amping up the evidence. And I mean, same thing with some of these books here. I mean, this is the stuff that got me into it. There's Chuck Missler's book, Alien Encounters. That's one of the first ones I read. Um, let's see some of this other stuff. This is a 16-hour tape that Ruckman put out on UFOs. This was in the 70s. A lot of the things he was saying in 1970, 1975 um, are coming to pass now, as
Wow.
far as all the stuff, the beings they're finding, the just a lot of the stuff that he would talk about. Now Congress is talking about.
Yep.
This
No,
is his
Congress
book.
is this.
This is a good read if you ever want to read something new you may not have heard of before. Black is Beautiful. And it references. I mean, he talks about the Vatican, all of it in this one. This is one of the first ones I read on this stuff. But yeah, we don't have a lot of time. So guys, do your research. There's no way we can cover it all. Jumping into Three Eye Atlas here. What are your thoughts on that? And as far as the whole phenomena, I know you mentioned that you beat the interdimensional drum. Um, what are your thoughts on the crypto-terrestrial hypothesis, which I partially subscribe to, which is that they're coming from underground, and then also, you've got stuff like Revelation 12, where it says the dragon and his angels are cast out of heaven, and of course, then they show up on the earth. Um, Not exactly aliens from another galaxy, but do you believe that there may be factions of them at least in outer space waiting to come down? What are
Yeah,
your
I,
thoughts
I
on?
think that's a very complex question. There's a film you can go on YouTube and Google it for yourself. It's called The Tether Incident. The Tether, Tether, Tether Incident. And there's a spacecraft way out, you know, circling the Earth, right? So let's pretend this is the spacecraft, and then it's got a tether behind it, towing this tether, right? Well, the tether breaks loose like this, okay? And so now the tether is out there, in space, and they're filming this thing. You see this pulsing UFO go like this. I'm going to put this over. Let me do this. I'll put this over here. So here's the tether. All of a sudden, you see this boom, 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 and it's pulsing like this. Boom, it goes behind the tether and it's pulsating. And it looks like a dropa stone. So it's a circle, but it's got part of it cut out. And the thing is flashing, pulsing like this, and it goes behind the tether. Well, if the tether is about 200 miles away from the spacecraft, then it's not an ice particle. That's what NASA tries to tell us. It's not an ice particle. It's going behind the tether, and that's old footage. So there's stuff out there. In fact, if you watch that, the whole place lights up. It's unbelievable. I mean, it lights up. These things are pulsing all over the place, and these are not ice crystals. I believe that there is stuff under the earth. I believe that there is. If you were going to hide a UFO, you hide it in the oceans. The
Yeah,
oceans
a lot of sightings coming out of the water.
a lot, especially just recently on the East Coast. That's the perfect place to hide them. When they pull the trigger on this, it'll be overwhelming. It will, if the church is still here, and we don't know whether the church, as I say, I came up with a couple of years ago, we go up, they come down. We go up, they show up. What if I'm wrong? What if it's exactly the opposite? What if they come down and that's the great deception? And then we go up, right? Because this is what's interesting. This is we give this little tract out. Thank you, Brad Myers, for he was the nexus behind all this. But we give this tract out to anybody who buys anything in our store. This is channeled information. This information comes from a trance medium through automatic writing or voice to skull. We are here. So what I'm reading now is, first of all, channel information, can't trust it. But listen to what they're saying. Listen to what these entities coming through this person are saying. We are here. We are the Pleiadians. Humanity is learning a great lesson at this time. The lesson is, of course, to realize your godhood. Well, where did we hear that? Where did we hear that?
Genesis chapter 3.
There you go. Right back in the garden. You'll be like God. If human beings do not change, if they do not make the shift in values and realize that without Earth, they would not be here, they could not be here, the Earth in its love for its own initiation is reaching for a higher frequency, will bring about a cleansing that will balance it once again. There is a potential for many people to leave the planet in an afternoon. The people who leave the planet during a time of Earth changes do not fit here any longer, and they are stopping the harmony of the earth. Now, I'm not making that up. What have they just done? I'll read it again. There is a potential for many people to leave the planet in an afternoon. The people who leave the planet do not belong here any longer, and they are stopping the harmony of the earth. I mean, there you go. That explains away the rapture of the church, right there.
Sure. This is out Chuck Missler's book, Alien Encounters, and along the same lines. Um, he says, I'm not sure if this is channeled or not, but this is what George King discusses in his book, The Day the Gods Came. The Declaration states quite definitely that there will be no mystery about the birth of the next world avatar as there was about the birth of Krishna, Buddha, Jesus, and others. This majestic being will come among men dressed in the one-piece suit usually worn by the intelligences from other planets. He will openly approach the Earth leaders. He will make his origin known to them, but they will not believe him. However, he will have great powers, which by karmic law he will be allowed to use in order to demonstrate to all men beyond all doubt the authority empowering him to carry out his great mission on Earth, which would be the dragon, according to Revelation chapter 12. It gives him his authority and his seat, or Revelation 13, maybe. The power of this being will be greater than mankind has ever seen before in any single humanoid frame. So vast will it be as to be almost terrible. For as the declaration states, they who heed not his words shall be removed from the earth. That's interesting. This means that those who cannot follow the teachings of truth, peace, and spirituality will pass from this planet on to a younger one in order to learn from the experiences they deserve. For those who will not follow the next avatar will not be ready for the golden age.
There
The
you go.
initiation of Earth has been given. Mankind should spare no efforts to help prepare the way for the next great cosmic event, for the next master who will come.
I mean, this is, we're not making this stuff up. And that's just one. There's a guy I'll be interviewing from the Rael organization, and they're saying that they're going to build the embassy in Jerusalem now. They've been saying they've been trying to do this for decades, and Rael claims to be Jesus's brother. It's just amazing. A cult always does two things. It negates the divinity of Jesus. Well, he was just a good teacher, and
Yep.
it always diffuses or discounts the work on the cross. Islam teaches that Jesus didn't die on the cross. There was another in his place. Well, that's not what we believe as Christians. If you want to believe what Islam teaches, that's fine. Believe what you want to believe. But as Christians, we know that Jesus did not swoon. No one was there in his place. He died. Absolutely died. That's why his mother and Mary and John are there. Now, nobody took his place. Jesus is there. And the deal is, how do you kill God? You can't kill God, or can you? That's what no one saw. Jesus is fully God and fully man. This is the great mystery. Well, the man dies. The spirit goes down and does what? Preaches to the trapped souls, trapped spirits, the fallen angels from the flood. No jailbreak, not getting out. It's over. Checkmate. I just won. And then he releases the captives and sets the captives free. And then 3 days later, he rises from the dead and creates this image on the Shroud of Turin. The Shroud of Turin looks like this. We have a new film on it. So when you see the shroud, this is all you see from 6 feet away. But when Secunda Pia took a picture of it in 1898, this is what he saw. And he almost dropped the glass plate. It bears the image of a crucified man. So that image, almost 2,000 years, lay undiscovered. No one had seen it because until Secunda Pia took a photograph, all you saw was this. This is God's calling card. It is forensic evidence, in my opinion, of the greatest event in all of history. the resurrection of the fully God, fully man, Jesus. And this is what the face looks like. I mean, it's beyond. It's just incredible. So we have a whole film on that my business partner Gil Zimmerman and I spent a year on, and we tie it in with the Sudarium of Oviedo and the Holy Fire, which has been happening at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre basically for the last 1,700 years. So it's pretty cool film.
It is awesome. Back to what you were talking about the evidence for his resurrection, for his death, for all that. I mean, he was declared to be dead by a medical doctor. That's Luke's story in the book of Luke, who was a medical doctor, traveled with Paul on all of his missionary journeys. And then back to what you were saying about people saying, "Oh, he's just a good prophet, he was just a good teacher." You have three options when it comes to Jesus Christ. He was either one, who he said he was, which was God. He said, "I am" to the Pharisees, which is a title for God in the Old Testament. He was declared to be "I am" to Moses at the burning bush in Exodus. So you got that option, or two, he was a liar. And if he was lying and saying I and my father are one, we're the same person, I am God, and if he wasn't, well then he's a liar and he was a pretty bad man and we shouldn't follow him. And then your other option is he was just a lunatic. He just had no idea what he was saying. So the whole idea that he was just a good prophet or a good teacher, it doesn't add up. You only have three options. He was either God, who he said he was, or a liar or a lunatic. That's basically all you have when it comes to Jesus Christ. Another thing you said was you were talking about how after Christ died, he went down, he preached to the spirits in prison, declared his victory, and I think that would match up with Colossians where he says, I've openly triumphed over principalities and powers, right? And he says to the disciples that only an adulterous generation seeketh after a sign. There will be no sign given but the sign of Jonas the prophet. For as he was in the belly of the whale 3 days and 3 nights, so will the Son of Man be where? In the heart of the earth. And I remember bringing that up to one of these pastors who believed in the Sethite theory as a teenager, and he said, "Oh, well, that's just referring to the tomb." And I told him, I said, "So you mean 6 feet under the ground in a tomb is referring to the heart of the earth?" But he did not want to acknowledge that whole part. He did not want to acknowledge the fact that, according to the Bible, there is an underworld. There
There is.
is, there's a hell, there's a bottomless pit where the spirits are kept, the fallen angels, and then there, at least in the Old Testament, whether it's there or not now, that's conjecture, but there was Abraham's bosom, there was paradise. Because when Jesus says to the thief on the cross, "Today thou shalt be with me in paradise," according to those other passages, where is he going? He wasn't going straight to heaven, he was going down to the heart of the earth and then spent 3 days and 3 nights there. So that's the biblical narrative for everybody who wants to get off on all this other stuff. I mean, what does the Bible plainly say?
Is that a rhetorical question, or is you know?
Statement, I guess.
Yeah, well, I agree. I mean, it's very obvious that and that's what the mystery is. His body is in the tomb, and Mary Magdalene, Mary's mother, and John are, and they're there at the cross, and they're all waiting. He's got to come down. He's going to heal himself, and he'll become the king because everyone will see that he just healed himself, right? But that's not what happens. They know who he is, and the crowd is going, "You saved others, come down. If you're they know he can. Come down." They're taunting him, "Come down, come down." Doesn't come down. And the dragon's sitting there going, "We got him now, right?" Because how do you kill God? No one sees it. Nobody sees it. No, the Marys don't get it. John the apostle doesn't get it. The dragon, Satan, doesn't get it. How do you kill God? You can't kill God, right? Well, as I said earlier, God dies. The body, fully man, lays in the tomb. I mean, it is the most cosmic mystery in all of history. I mean, it just is. And by his blood, we are saved. That's it. By his blood, our sins are forgiven. Go figure. Right?
Yeah. It's an awesome story, the most awesome story. I mean, in all of this, what we're talking about, I mean, to a lot of people, it's just absolute fantasy nonsense. But I mean, it's Bible. The fact that Jesus Christ became a man, God became a man, and then died and shed His blood for all of us, and then all the stuff we're talking about with the second advent and the setup of these 10 kings. There's so much biblical evidence. But jumping on to another topic real quick. There's archaeological evidence, and that's something that I'm really excited about as far as your work goes, is because I've mainly just had conversations with people who are like me. We read the Bible, we believe it, we see things, we research, but you've actually done actual work down in Peru. Is that still going on, the Paracas Skull project?
Yeah, it is. I really can't talk too much about that, but we are still doing work on it. Yes.
Awesome. So that's still an ongoing thing. I had Mondo on a couple weeks ago, and he mentioned that he was involved in that research, and
Yeah,
that's
that's
pretty
correct.
cool.
Right.
Um, do you know anything about the Nazca tridactyls that they're also, I'm assuming, still working on, or is that more
Yeah,
of
they are.
Alberino's thing?
Tim and I discussed that. Tim Alberino and I discussed it. I think they're a construct. I think they're a fake.
Okay.
I think what they've done is they've taken mummified bodies of elongated skulls. Okay, they take the three fingers, they clip off the thumb and the pinky, they elongate the three fingers, then they encase it in the white substance, whatever it is. That's my theory. And because I handled the ferry and we debunked the ferry, we got it out of Mexico and then we debunked it, Richard Shaw and I. So, the naysayers would go, oh, Marzulli got fooled by the ferry. Excuse me, Marzulli did not get fooled by anything. Marzulli actually and Shaw did real research. And in the book, Nephilim Hybrids, I say, at the time of this printing, we believe the fairy is real. However, they never tell you that part. However, more testing needs to be done. So after the book came out, a couple of months later, Jaime Maussan and his right hand man Javier, they took, because Jaime had it down in Mexico City. So Javier drove the ferry across the border, and then we got it. We had a lab set up at a veterinarian. There were three veterinarians there. We took the ferry out of the jar with formaldehyde, put it on a plastic tray, and looked at it under. We did an X-ray, and everybody's going, looks real, looks. And one of the guys go, not so sure what's going on with the pelvis area. And I go, well, I mean, there's the bird shot, so that's why the pelvis is weird, because the bird shot. And he goes, yeah, I guess that's so. So everybody believes it. There's three vets. Everybody believes it. All the vet techs. Oh, we got a ferry. Now what are we going to do? Richard, my business partner, Richard passed away a number of years ago. He's freaking out. He's looking at stuff under a microscope, and everybody's talking. And the ferry is on this plastic tray. And I go, what the heck is this? And I reach down and I pick up, this is a lot larger, but I pick up something that looks like a matchstick with epoxy on the end of it. And it's where the arm was. So we go running back to the x-ray. Sure enough, we see the epoxy. Now we know, oh, look, it's not really an arm. It's a matchstick, wooden matchstick or something with epoxy attaching it. I got on the phone immediately. I called Prophecy Watchers. I called um, um, Skywatch TV and said, it's a hoax. It's a fake. Don't go with it. So if I was trying to hide something, and everybody, we got an overwhelming amount of positive email, 99.999% emails. Thank you, LA, for being forthright, coming forward, not trying to hide anything. One guy, and I won't mention his name, wrote a negative, really negative, but that's who this guy was. He's no longer here, passed away a few years ago. It's like he had to be, and I'm not going to tell you who he is, but anybody else, he always disparaged people, said very negative things about me, about other people. So then we go up, Richard and I go up, take the ferry, we go up to the Natural History Museum in Santa Barbara, and we meet with a scientist who's also a taxidermist who pulls this thing apart. Here's a squirrel. This is that. See, and it's a free film. You can go. It's called Anatomy of a Hoax. It's a free film that we did because we all thought it was real. But that's real research. We should have gotten an award for debunking the fairy instead of
Yeah.
the naysayers going, "Oh, Marzulli got fooled." Excuse me, everybody got fooled. You got fooled. I got fooled. Everybody, all the people, all the scientists and the DNA guys down in Mexico, they got fooled. The three veterinarians in the veterinary clinic, they got fooled. So I mean, the guy did a really good job, and Jaime got fooled. Jaime paid $20,000 for that thing.
Good night.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Now, are the is there a difference between the smaller ones and the larger ones? Because I know Alberino would come out and said, I believe the small ones are fakes. They're effigies. They're dolls of
Yeah, the smaller
possibly.
ones are definitely fake. We both agree on that. I think the big ones are construct. And, it'd be real simple. Just take one apart completely, but no one's done that. We're taking some samples or doing this, where you don't see any evidence of wire. You don't know that. You got to take the thing apart. You got to
Yeah.
sacrifice one and do an autopsy on this thing. And to the best of my ability, nobody's, best of my knowledge, no one's done that yet. So
Are they not allowed to? Like it's a historical
I
artifact or
don't know.
something?
I
And
mean, the powers that be is it's just Peru is Peru, and it took us 3 years to get permits to take the DNA, and then we took 58 samples, and we took them to 3 different labs, and they're not contaminated, they're not. Mondo was with me, Richard Shaw was with me, Chase Klosky, tagged and bagged everything. There's no contamination. There was one sample that we threw out because it was contaminated. It shows a Middle Eastern origin. Our film on DNA is probably the most comprehensive film to date of the elongated skulls. No other film comes close to it because we're the guys that got the DNA. Nobody else got it. We did. We did. And we're still in the process of doing more research. So in the film, we have archaeologists, anthropologists, scientists, doctors, medical doctors, surgeons, chiropractors, a whole gamut of people, a multidisciplined team of people saying the same thing. This is genetic. This is genetic. This is genetic. I mean, how many, but the academia doesn't want to hear that because they're all Darwinists for the most part. They don't believe in anything supernatural. There are no miracles. There are no absolutes. There is no ultimate truth. There's nothing but just mindless evolution. There is no God. There is no prophecy. Miracles don't happen, and on it goes. Shut up and pay your taxes. But we, as Bible believing Christians, look at this and go, this is the remnant. This is one of the Nephilim tribes behind us. There's no doubt in my mind. Absolutely no doubt. And hopefully, when we present again, we'll do it in more of a, now having done it once, we know what the mistakes were. So, we'll hopefully the second presentation will be better. And we're getting ready to do something on that. Maybe next year. We'll see.
awesome. I look forward to it. I mean, even if the small ones were fakes, I mean the evidence is already there. The archaeological evidence, the biblical evidence. I mean, just going through with the Israelites show up in the land, and what's there? There's all these tribes of giants, the Rephaim, the Zamzuzim, and the Enims, and all these different things, and you can't spiritualize or allegorize it. I mean, they said that they went in and saw these things and they were like grasshoppers compared to
Right.
them. And then they
Exactly.
go in, they wipe out all these tribes. And then, I mean, even, you know, I think I want to say Joshua, where it records that Joshua destroys all these tribes and he only leaves them in 3 cities. And he leaves them in
Gath.
Gaza, Gath, and I think I want to say
Ashdod.
Ashdod, and
Yeah.
that's where Goliath comes from.
That's it.
Then you go fast forward to First Samuel, and you've got a giant coming out of Gath, who's over
Yo.
9 feet tall.
Yeah. Big surprise there. Luke, I got to get going. We're coming up on an hour here, but
Sounds great, LA. Well, thank you for joining us. And guys, if you haven't checked out some of his books, go ahead and do that. You can get them on Amazon, I believe, right?
the Amazon or lamarzulli.com that you can stream everything. The 10 box DVD set, it's right here. The Rungs of Disclosure, lamarzulli.com. You can stream all the films by going to streaming.lamarzulli.net. Do your homework, folks. 33 films. Anatomy of a Hoax is free, so you can check that out. But we're up to rung number 24. The book only has 17. So the book came out last October, 2024. So in a little over a year, we've gone up 7 rungs on the ladder of disclosure.
Crazy. It's escalating. But once
It
again,
is.
thank you for joining us. Do
Oh,
me a
oh, my
favor,
pleasure.
LA, and see if you can
Yeah,
find this book somewhere. Black is Beautiful. Get a hold of that, read that, and I think you'll find some interesting information in it.
I'll definitely check it out. One more thing. Today is the 21st. I don't know when this is going to air, but Age of Disclosure is airing tonight. I will be watching that. I will be commenting on it tomorrow, and that'll be up on our YouTube channel, L.A. Marzulli. Luke, pleasure to meet you. You've got to, if the Lord tarries, um, you're going to be one of the guys that the baton is passed to, no doubt.
I appreciate the kind words.
If the Lord tarries, we'll see. Yeah, good stuff. Thank you. Take
Yep, it's
care.
been
God
fun.
bless.
Appreciate it.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.